Didn't see you there. I was too busy thinking about nothing. Actually, ever since we started talking about Heidegger, I've been coming back to this question: why is there a part of music that I can hear but not necessarily understand? Heidegger would say is born from the anxiety which allows us to realize the nothing or the separation between us and an object. And that sense of the thing is contrasted from science, which seeks to impose what Heidegger calls Gestell, or a framework, upon the things of the world which we perceive in order to get to their essential nature and be able to categorize them in a way where we can control that knowledge. So where does that nothing or that spacing come from in music? Well, Heidegger says that works of art have two essential components. That's world and earth. And there's that tension between those two components. We cannot get to that earthy quality of the work of art, and so we are unable to control it. So in music, that separation, that distancing comes from what people call phrasing, but also in the tension between unresolved notes, which is very prevalent in jazz. You can have a piece like Bad Guy by Billie Eilish, which I personally hate because the bass line is, which is very easy to categorize. There are three pitches. I can listen to it and analyze the rhythm, 1 and 3 and 3 and 4. I begin to take those notes and categorize them in my head in a way that allows me to control them and think that I know the essential nature of that song. On the other hand, you have classical symphonic pieces and jazz, which have two types of tension, such as any full diminished chord that you might see in a jazz piece, or from movements in the phrasing of a piece such as Rift and Wed, composed by Julie Giraud. So that change in the phrasing, or that changing in the separation or the distancing between me and that music because of the phrasing or because of the tension of the notes really prevents me from taking that piece and understanding it completely in my mind. Since I can feel that tension, that separation between me and the earthiness of that song, I can then interpret it in a way with something like imagination, or understanding it as the possibility of the worlds that could be born out of the sound of that music. So in that way, good music is like art, which we cannot reduce down to a single meaning. But since most of the world are not auditory learners, visual art is a lot more effective in communicating that distance or separation in the phenomenological sense, which is why we have visual works of art.
Hi, my name is Manahil. I'm going to pick up where Andy left off. I'm going to specifically talk about art, the tension between earth and world, and I'm going to talk about science versus art and then its relationship to the nothing. So I'll begin by defining earth and world. Heidegger uses these terms as being opposites almost. So world is a revealing part, earth is a concealing part, but earth can't be directly experienced. It's something that's felt. And then whereas world is, it brings context to meaning, and it's the interplay or the tension between these two things that brings beauty to artwork. So as an artist, I don't claim to be a great artist, but I've made enough artwork to kind of know the process. And what stuck out to me the most while reading Heidegger is my frustrations with art block. So, for example, I don't really go into a painting with an idea in mind and then execute it in one sitting. I kind of let the painting take its own form. So, what ends up happening is I'll have a bunch of these unfinished paintings laying around, and they can lay around for, I guess, like months, but the way I found to confront it is to put it somewhere where I see it often. So somewhere in my room where I'm walking past it. And this makes me really anxious. Like I feel anxiety. It's the nothing, what is, what isn't, the possibilities that I can envision for the painting. But it really comes down to, what should the painting be? And there's no really method into, you know, how to solve that issue. Is like I could walk past something, my painting for like the 156th time, and have that aha moment, and everything will click and I'll know how to execute this thing. But I want to kind of talk about, the alternate route, the scientific route. I feel like where it's more, process based, where I guess if I have a deadline, art becomes utility, I guess, if you want to paint something for someone. I feel like I've had this where I need to finish something and I say, okay, well, it's got to look pretty. So you can find complementary colors for the background. I can make like my proportions look right. Maybe I'll watch like a step-by-step YouTube video just for the sake of aesthetic appeal and finishing that painting. But when I do that, I feel like my work doesn't have the same earthy quality. It's not, I guess, as beautiful as it would have been if I let it take its own shape. And I kind of understand what Heidegger says, that we kind of assault artwork with rationality sometimes, and it doesn't work out. The mind does get frustrated because um, art isn't like science. It's not something that's step by step. You can't really rationalize art block away. Um, but yeah, I think that was one of my experiences that made more sense after reading Heidegger, and I hope that's something that's helpful. So thank you.